Hello, everyone. Thanks so much for joining me here today as we get to talk about one of my favorite subjects, comic books. My name is Jose. I love comic books. I love talking about them. I love sharing them with you. Feel free to follow me on social media if you would like. Links are in the description below. I've also posted a link to the Marvel fan set that'll have plot synopsis and character bios for the issues we're about to go through. The New Mutants, #1 from 1982. I've covered the New Mutants graphic novel. Now we're going to New Mutants 1. I am covering the Chris Claremont era of the X universe. Yes, that does mean that eventually we'll go into X Factor, and it'll be Louise Simonson that is the writer for most of it. However, it is still part of that era. We're going to just go through. So the New Mutants is uh, or the first spin-off of the Uncanny X-Men. Um, I have quite a few playlists. So I have an Uncanny X-Men or just an X-Men playlist. Everything is in chronological order. Then I have an X Universe, Chris Claremont X Universe playlist where I have everything, the X-Men and issues that like Marvel Fanfare are in there that Claremont did. Those will be included in there as well. New Mutants will be there. Everything will be in reading order. So I'm going to have everything put in order. So, and then I will have a New Mutants kind of separate by itself as well. So you be able to find a whole lot of good stuff in there. So I started in Giant Size X-Men #1, which I read as Classic X-Men, and we're just going through. So the X-Men are in outer space. Professor Xavier believes them to be dead. So the New Mutants were born from that, and that was explained in the Marvel graphic novel #4, which is the first appearance of the New Mutants. So we get this cover here. We got a color hold here of Professor X using his telepathic powers. We've got a Cannonball, Mirage, Karma, Sunspot, and of course, Wolfsbane. And Bob McLeod does this cover. I believe Bob McLeod will be the artist until Bill Sienkiewicz takes over, but don't quote me on that. So here we are. Here's our credits: Chris Claremont and Bob McLeod, writer penciler. Some guy I've never heard of, Mike Gustovich. He's the inker. Orzechowski and Ween are from the X-Men team. Looks so Orzechowski is lettering with Glynis Ween coloring. Louise Jones, who becomes Louise Simonson, is still editing. So we are at Professor X's school, and we're getting an introduction to everybody: Sam Guthrie Cannonball, Roberto da Costa Sunspot, Danielle Moonstar Mirage, and here we have Rain Sinclair, Wolfsbane, and of course Sean Coy Man, Karma. And this is Stevie Hunter, and she's washing Karma's hair, and Karma is like, is this really necessary, Stevie? Why do I have to let the others watch? And the name of her story, Initiation. And she said, I couldn't stop them, sweetheart. Hold your breath. And so Rain says, my hair will never look pretty. It will never look pretty. It never seems to grow near. It near seems to grow. Okay, sorry. And Da Costa is very smooth. He goes, do not be so sad, Rain. It suits you perfectly. And its color is as fiery as your spirit. And he kisses her hand. She's like, ouch. And Stevie is like, woof, boy, you certainly have style. In my native Brazil, Stevie, to admire what is beautiful is merely good manners. And Rain is like, he kissed me. Does that mean he likes me? And of course, look at poor Karma here. I do not consider this an improvement. And Stevie's like, trust me. And Stevie goes, Roberto's a real charmer and he knows it. I hope he's careful of Rain's feelings. Her fundamental Scots upbringing has made her terribly innocent and vulnerable. She continues to think here. These are thought balloons, which we don't see often. And of course, Danny is all like, "Oh, Roberto, if only you would look at me. My heart." She goes, "Pitter pat, I faint, I swoon. Stevie, please, please, perform your wizardry on me. I too am an ugly duckling yearning to be a swan." And Shan is like, "What did I ever do to deserve this?" And Stevie's like, "Hush, Danny. Hold still, Shan." And then suddenly, um, Danny can't control her power, so of course we get, uh, uh, oh my gosh, Karma's sort of origin, here as her, um, mother and father are dead, and these, of course, are just representation of the villagers that killed her, parents. Would be, during the Vietnam War era, and so Shan, of course, is not happy, and she goes, "Monster!" And Danny's like, "I'm sorry, I didn't mean." And she's like, "Liar! I thought you were my friend, yet you reveal my shame for all the world to see." And Stevie's like, "Stop it, girl, you're killing her. Don't you understand? It was an accident. Didn't mean no harm." And she's like, "Get away from me!" And she uses her power to take over Stevie. And then Roberto just slaps her to try to, um, get her to snap out of it. That's been something that is, by the way, that is something people still believe, that if you slap someone, it'll kind of snap them out of it. So, um, Mirage feels terrible, and she's like, "Shan, please believe me. I'd give anything for this to never have happened." And Chad's like, "And what will you say next time, sorcery?" She's speaks French. When you've laid bare our very souls. If I could possess you, I'd have you rip the living heart from your own breast. I would make you suffer, but I can't let myself. I can't." And she cries here. Um, Stevie sends Mirage outside till they both cool off and reassures her that everything will be okay. She then dismisses everyone. She knows that, Shan needs to be alone, and, if everyone, that she'll call everyone if she needs them. And Roberto, says Danny looked miserable when she left. I'm going to find her. Cannonball puts his arm on his shoulder and says, "Please leave her be." And, uh, Da Costa says, "I want to help her, Sam." And, Cannonball says, "I do too, but I got a couple of sisters, and we've gotten into a fair share of scraps, and he learned the hard way how to handle them, and it's not to crowd them." And Roberto says, he's not just concerned about Danny, he's also concerned about Shan, and that threat just seemed to, be real. And he says, "Quite the beginning for the school." So, meanwhile, Mirage feels terrible. She goes, "Man, I should have just let Shan bash my, brains out. It's no more than I deserve." She's kind of upset because her grandfather, told her she had to come do this, um, so that Professor Xavier could help her control the abilities. But she says, "But all Xavier's done is give me a stupid costume and make my life miserable. Where am I anyway? I've never been in this wing." And then he says, "Oh, this must be where the other students, the ones Stevie called the X-Men, live." And so here we have, sketches here, or pictures. We've got Kitty and Wolverine and, Colossus. So, and, she says here, "Nice room, as messy as mine. What strange people." So, they make mention here that Liliana is in England with Dr. McTaggart, and then she wonders if she's a mutant like they are. She says that the professor never talks about the X-Men, that something terrible must have happened to them, and she wonders if that will be the fate that awaits the New Mutants. So she's gonna go up this attic too. She just feels, terrible. She says, "My powers are destroying my life, and any chance for friendships or happiness here, just like they did back home. It isn't fair. So, of course, now she's in Storm's attic and sees all these plants here. So, she's going to water them here. She says, doesn't anybody look after them? They're wilted, dying from lack of water. Of course, no one's around there. People are cruel. Are cruel. Plants are living things. They deserve as much consideration as human beings. Drink up, little one. There's lots more where this came from. So, she realizes the attic is the full length of the house here. So, she introduces herself to the plant here. So, she waters all the plants here and realizes that her stomach is growling. So, she wonder if Karma's still mad at her and how do they make things right between the two of them. So, Professor X calls them telepathically and says, please don your costumes and report to me in the danger room for your first training session. So, in London, we are at the residence of the Israeli ambassador. Eliana says, do you know why we've been summoned? And she says, nope. And this lady here introduces herself, Gabriel Holler, and thanks them and says they'll eat first, then talk. And then after eating, she says here, your reputation in this field of mutant genetics is considerable, Moira. So is my need. I have a son, not much older than you, Ilyana, an autistic child. And Moira says, that's a bit out of my line, Dr. Howler. I'm no psychiatrist. And she says his autism is merely a symptom of something far more serious. The boy is a mutant. I believe his abilities are preliminary psionic, telepathy, possibly telekinesis. I have tried every means to help him without success. I turn to you as a last resort. And she says, I'm flattered, but the person you need is her colleague, Charles Xavier. And she says, I want, look at the cigarette here, and Liana like, cough, cough, cough. I want Xavier kept out of this. And she says, why? And she says, I have my reason. And she says, I have a right to hear them. So Gabriel says, very well, since you insist, Charles Xavier is the boy's father. So, long time X-Men people that um, know who the boy is going to become. So I won't spoil it. We'll just keep going. But uh, it'll be a good reveal when we get to that arc. Chris Claremont's always setting things up here. So back at the mansion here, and so he kind of gives them an explanation of the danger room here, and Sam's like, Shan's never looked so good, and congratulates Stevie, and Xavier's like, so he tells them to just mind the other wing and respect the privacy of the X-Men. And Danny knows she refers to him. Um, so, so Sunspot asks, are we to become the new X-Men? And Charles quickly says, no. And he says, sorry, I didn't mean to snap. He says, this was a school. You will learn to be students, learn to control your powers, all that. But no more X-Men, no more superheroes. That chapter of my life is over forever. Roberto kind of insists. He says, the subject is closed. Now pay attention, students, while I explain the operation of the master console. So he says the room is about 10 meters beneath the mansion. 10 meters is approximately about 30 feet. Under no circumstances, whoever is whatsoever is the room to be used without an adult present, either him or Dr. McTaggart or Miss Hunter. Stevie Hunter will be basically their PE teacher, and that they may believe they're in good shape, but they need their bodies honed to a level of champion athletes in order to control their powers much better. So, And he says, and even though they're not going to be training to combat evil mutants like the X-Men did, um, they must be prepared for every eventuality. So, and Roberto says, the gym in my dad's house is also very well equipped. And he says, well, can your gym do this? So he's like, whoa. And so, Cannonball's like, everything's changed. And they're like, the monsters are charging. And so Professor X switches it off. It was, of course, a um, an illusion here, and he explains to him it's a hologram here. And I do apologize normally, but it's just Chris Claremont just puts in so many words in these videos. As he gets more and more, he just puts in so many more words. So he explains to them some more, and he says that was X-Men level sequence, and you won't reach that for quite some time. And they got their own sequences primed and ready. Your task will be simple: merely cross the room to exit and leave. Who'd like to go first? And so, um, Cannonball decides, all right, here we go, and he goes through. But of course, this thing gets in the way, and he's gonna try it again, but this thing sucks him and spits him out in another way. So he's like, ah. So now comes Wolfsbane, same thing. And so no matter what she does, she can't get it through. Now we got Sunspot. Robot gets him, and that didn't work either. And now it's Karma, and of course, um, Cannonball comes, uses her power, and then he goes to um, hit Sunspot, and then here's Wolfsbane. And so Wolfsbane gives her a lick, and so no, she could not get out either. So at this moment, she's called Psyche, but it's Mirage is the name that she is going to end up with. So that's why I call her Mirage. Um, and he says something the matter. And he says, "Nope, I'm fine." She's very afraid to try this, so off she goes, and she opens the door, and you can just see kind of the panic in her um, eyes. So now they're outside here, and Wolfsbane asks her if she's okay. She just wants to make sure she's okay. She asks if the others sent there, and she goes, "Nope, I came on my own." And he goes, "They didn't care," and she's like, "Don't be daft." So she's very happy the way she's been able to control her powers. She says, "I'm glad you're like using your powers. I'd give anything to get rid of mine," says Mirage. And so Chris Claremont does what Chris Claremont does, which is allow more drama and more. It's what he lives for. Danny says she had friends until her powers came into. It drove them away, and almost overnight, she became an outcast. Her parents and grandfather stood by her, but then one night she reached into her dad's mind and pulled out a nightmare. She says she saw a bear standing over the bloody remains of a pony and an eagle. The bear had killed them, and she says, "My father was Eagle Clan, my mother was Horse Clan. Rain, I'd show them their deaths." So and so Rain says, "Then what happened?" And she says, "A week later, Dad packed a truck for a trip to the high country. He took his best guns and bow. Looked like a warrior preparing for battle. Mom insisted on going with him. They left me in a Black Eagle's care. I never saw them again." Black Eagle, of course, is her grandfather. She had run away to live like a hermit, but then she says here, It happened again last month, which of course was in the New Mutants graphic novel, and saw her grandfather's death, which of course really did occur. And later, once I met you guys, I thought I would finally get the chance to live a normal life. For the first time in ages, I allowed myself to hope. So much for that idea, she says. So she says, of course, how scared she was and she couldn't go through. Everybody else did. And Rain says, I was scared too. And um, Danny says, but I didn't run. So, and she says, Shan doesn't blame you. She knows it was an accident and she reacted the way she did because it caught her by accident. So she hear the honk. And of course, it's Stevie calling. Of course, Wolfsbane is coming here. And Stevie says, Charles was awfully reluctant to search for her telepathically. He didn't seem terribly disturbed by her panic either. Maybe I'm out of line, but the kid seemed pretty upset to me. So in comes Wolfsbane here. So, and she turns back and she says, I found Danny. And is she coming? And they says, not yet. And so here they go driving, and of course someone is watching them because, hey, it is a comic book after all. These guys go. They're heading towards Salem Center. Better not alert headquarters, so they do. And they keep reporting, and of course we have Peter Gyrick, which we met in the X-Men. Again, I have a playlist. Feel free to check it out. So he says to keep watching the kids and not do anything without orders. So now we're heading back to the mansion, and Danny is going to try this. And of course, her hands are shaking. She is terrified here. So she gets a hold of herself and says, here, my family are people of honor and courage, Professor. You'll find I'm cast from the same mold. So we're almost done here. It's the last 2 pages. And so she steps in, the test begins, and she sees these robots are trying to stop her. And you can see her moving one out of the way and sees the exit here. And she made it through. And she's like, I passed the test. Suddenly, zap. And she is shot. It says here that oblivion fades, awareness returns. So look at her just. And we see here someone is touching the controls. And now they've set it up for the X-Men. So, next issue, Sentinels. So, New Mutants #1, Chris Claremont, Bob McLeod. Like and subscribe. I do thank you for listening. Goodbye.